So in this section of the video, I'm going to take you through the sections of project initiation documentation or project charter. It is also quite important that you understand these sections, and you should always include them as part of your project initiation activities. So, hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Oscar Mbira. I'm a certified program and project manager. This is the channel which I use to help aspiring and also practicing project managers to succeed. In this video, so the first section is to do with project definition. It is important that in a project initiation document or project charter, you also need to include the definition of the project. What exactly is this project all about? For example, what I was talking about. For example, you can say this project is about changing an old system to a new system and for the benefit of the organization in the following ways. So you've defined your project. So it is quite important that you have a definition for the project. And then the next one is also to give a background of the project. So for example, this banking project example I'm giving, you can say the bank was operating in one country. They wanted to expand to a number of countries, but the current system, the banking system, could not give them the opportunity or could not give them the facility to serve customers in different countries. So they've decided to go for a new system that is going to enable them to service new countries. So that is the background. If someone was going to take the PID, they have seen the definition, they have also seen the background of the project. I hope you are enjoying the video so far. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe button, and the notification button so that you are the first person to be notified each time a new video is uploaded on this channel. It will also help the channel to grow. It will also help the channel to produce more videos like this one. So the next section of the PID is also to define the objectives and also expected outcome from the project. This is quite important. You are summarizing what you have been doing in project initiation stage, okay? So when you are summarizing, you also want to make it very clear, either to the current members or future members, or even project board members, what are the objectives and expected outcome from this project. I'm going to take you through using this banking example because some of the items are very easy to grasp, even if you have never worked in a bank before. So the objectives here could be to increase revenue. That is number one. Number two, it could be to expand the product categories. Number three, it can also be even to improve customer experience. And also in some cases, you want to meet or satisfy the regulatory reporting. So there could be so many objectives and expected outcome from the project. And the good reason for doing it in the project initiation stage is, as you go through the project, you revisit and assess, you revisit and assess. So objectives and expected outcome, they should be part and parcel of your project PID or project charter. So the next section now is to do with what is in scope and exclusions. Take it from me. This is very, very important. If you have seen so many projects running for long, it's because the scope was not well defined. The exclusions were also not well defined. So it is very important that before you present the PID to the project board members, you are also very clear, you have also documented what is in scope and what is not in scope. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of scope creep, which is unauthorized changes coming in through the project. So looking at the banking example that I was talking about, you might say in scope, I'm going to have retail banking. In scope, I'm going to have lending or credit banking. In scope, I'm going to have finance. In scope, I'm also going to have, say, for example, corporate banking. In scope, I'm going to have internet banking, mobile banking, and so on and so forth. You must also document the exclusions in the project. For example, you might say, this project is not going to include new infrastructure, for example, or this project is not going to include this particular region, for example, or this project is not going to be including anti-money laundering modules, for example, or this project is not even going to include a certain number of channels, or maybe checks, for example, or cards, for example. So it is also very important that in your PID or project charter, you also define the scope and you also define what is not part of the scope. That is very, very critical, and it will help you to set the foundation in case there's any disagreements in future. You can make reference to that section of the PID document. So the next section on the PID is to look at constraints and assumptions. So it is quite apparent that you appreciate what are the assumptions you took into consideration when you're creating all your strategies. Those have to be documented into the PID. Don't make a mistake. I've seen so many project managers not doing that. So when you present the PID or the project charter to the project board, those assumptions and constraints must be very clear. For example, you might have a constraint on time. The project is not supposed to run for more than 2 years. Okay, then you plan for that. Assumption, you might say the selected vendor is going to provide skilled resources. It could be part of the assumption. Or even the current technology is going to be used for the next 5 years. Assumptions can change as you move in the project from the beginning all the way up to the end. Maybe a specific assumption is no longer valid, you come and update. Or there's a new assumption which is coming in, or a new constraint which is also coming in, you can also come and update. But it must be part of a PID, it must be part of a project charter as you present to the project board. Remember, a project PID or project charter is a contract between the project management team and the project board. You are agreeing that as a project manager, I'm going to run the project on behalf of the project board. And this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I'm going to respond to the risks. This is how I'm going to manage quality. This is how I'm going to manage changes. This is how I'm also going to manage the benefits. These are my controls, and these are my monitoring tools. So when you present to them, you also want to present the assumptions that you have considered, especially the assumptions on the planning. What are you assuming when you're planning? Are you assuming we're using the same technology? Are you assuming the headcount or the resources are enough? Are you assuming the budget is okay? And so on and so forth. So that is very, very important for you to consider when you're presenting your PID to management. So the other section you also need to put in your PID is also the stakeholder analysis. Stakeholders, they might vary and change throughout the project. For example, you might want, assuming it's a construction project, obviously you expect some local board authority to inspect the building and so on and so forth. So those are stakeholders. Stakeholders are any members or stakeholders is anyone who is interested in the project. If you want to understand more about stakeholders, I have a video on stakeholders. You can also watch it on my channel. So anyone who has got interest in the project is called a stakeholder. So in your PID project charter, you need to be very clear in terms of the stakeholders. For example, the banking example I was giving you, one of the stakeholders there is the central bank. Obviously, you would expect to see a central bank on that. The other one, obviously, is customers. You also expect to see customers on that. And in some cases, even government. So stakeholder analysis must be done, and it must be documented as part of your PID to the project board. The next section is to do with interfacing. Let me give you a very simple example to appreciate what we mean by interfacing. I was lucky to run a program. So a program has got so many projects. Some of them interrelated, some of them independent. So by documenting in the PID or project charter, the interface, what you are trying to put across is how dependent or independent is your project to the surroundings. Say, for example, your project is also producing something that is going to be used as an input into another project. So you also need to document. You also need to document that in your PID, that my project is going to produce this process, and this process is going to be consumed by this particular project. That is very, very important. So you also need to go through a process of checking what is interfacing either into your project or out of your project. That is quite important, and it must be documented so that when you present it to the project board, you are very clear to them that my project is either independent or it is dependent on another project outside, or it's making a dependence to another project outside. So it is quite important that you have that section in your PID that you summarize. I'm not saying go and look for a very long document on how you're going to interface. No, you are summarizing. Remember, we have individual documents, the strategy document, the plans, the communication document. You can also make reference to them. But what is very important is to make sure that at least you have documented that. So the other important section you must include in your PID is what is called project approach. It is what is called project approach. So you might be asking yourself, what does a project approach mean? I've also done a video on project approaches. You can also check it on my channel. So what do we mean by this? A project approach is how are you going to approach the project? For example, I'll give you two examples, one from software, other one from construction. Say, for example, you have decided to change the software. You might have so many options. One of them, is to go and buy a software which is already working. It's called off-the-shelf software. Or you might decide to do it internally, which means you're starting from scratch. Or you might even subcontract it to a vendor to do it from scratch for you. So that approach defines how you're going to run the project. For example, if it's something that you're going to take as an off-the-shelf and then you do customization, obviously the period is not going to be the same. The resources are also not going to be the same. The risks are also not going to be the same. Quality checks are also not going to be the same. Even configuration checks are also not going to be the same. So project approach is very, very important. So I can give you another example of construction. On construction, you might start a building from the foundation all the way up. Say, for example, you're constructing a house. There are normally two scenarios. The first one is there's nothing, you just have land. So you want to construct the house from the beginning. You want to construct the house from the beginning all the way up. Or maybe you are constructing a house which already has a foundation. So which means you're not starting from foundation. You're starting from the structure all the way up to the roof. So your project approach definitely, and even planning or your strategies, they're going to be different from someone who's starting from the bottom. So it is quite important that in your PID or project charter, you also document your approach. The approach is also going to be presented to the project board members. They should know how the project is going to be done. So that kind of documentation and details, they are very, very important, especially for their approval, for you to move to the next stage. I can give you the next section is to make sure that you have also documented clearly the business case. Remember, business case, when you do it initially, it's a bit sketchy. But when it comes to project initiation stage, you are now detailing the business case. You are now putting more information on the business case. So to some extent, at least it becomes very detailed and clear to anyone who might come into the project later or to anyone who might want to audit the project later. So business case section is also very important, and you must also include it in your PID or project charter for project board approval. That is very, very critical, and you should not leave it out. The next section now is to do with project team structure. I can tell you, it is very, very important that you appreciate how the team is supposed to be structured. In my episode 2, I have a whole video on how to structure a team. You can also watch it on my channel. It is very, very important that you appreciate how a project team is structured. I can tell you, if you don't have a structure in terms of your team, you are bound to fail. This project I'm talking about, which had no structure initially, and that is why I did this video, it was very difficult. I call it a popcorn approach. Today someone wakes up, they are doing this, tomorrow they are doing this one is doing this, and so on and so forth. That has never worked. You must have a proper project structure. Proper project structure, it will have the project board, it will have your project manager, your change board, your project assurance, it will also have your project manager, your team managers, and team structure. I actually have a video just for a generic project structure. You can also check it on my channel. So once your structure is there, make sure you also add it as part of the documentation or PID that you're going to present to the project board. That is very, very important. And you should make sure that you have your project structure in your PID or project charter and present it to the board. Why are you presenting to the board? You're creating a contract with the board that for me to be able to deliver this project as a project manager, these are the roles and responsibilities that I'm going to take. These are the structure. This is the team which I have structured to deliver the project. So it is quite important. Don't ever make a mistake of not structuring your team. It will be very difficult to run the project as you go deeper into more and more activities as you execute the project. So the next section is to do with the roles and the responsibilities. Remember, earlier we have discussed about structure. Even if you have a structure, for example, you have a team manager. Team managers, they vary from project to project. They also vary from industry to industry. So you still need to describe the roles. You still need to define the responsibilities. If you want to appreciate more about the roles and responsibilities in a project, I have a video on the roles and responsibility of a project structure. You can also check my video, and you can also appreciate how the roles and responsibilities are defined in a project environment. So your PID, your project charter, must have clear, defined roles and responsibilities, role description in the documentation. Once you have done that, you present it to project board to say, when I say a team manager, for example, the banking example I'm giving, you might have a team manager specific for retail banking. But what does it mean? Now, you define a retail banking team manager What are they supposed to do in terms of roles, responsibilities? You describe that. Say, for example, you also have a channels or integration team manager. What are they supposed to do? You are also supposed to define the roles and the responsibility for that team manager. For example, you have a project administrator or project support. You also need to define for the project administrator, this is what is expected of them. So the roles and responsibilities should also be part of the PID or part of the project charter. Don't miss them out. They are very, very important. And it will be very easy for you when it comes to managing stages. Because using roles and responsibilities, you're going to make it very easy to assign packages to team members in the project. Because you know their roles, you know their responsibilities. So assigning packages become very, very easy. So don't skip that space, don't skip that step. It's quite important and you need it. So your PID, the rest of the following sections of a PID, we've already covered them. So you need to make sure your section for risk management strategy document is available. Your section for quality management is also available. Your section for version control or configuration management is also available. Your section for communication management is also available. And then your detailed plan. Remember what I said earlier, I didn't want this video to be too long, so I've created a separate video on planning, which you can also check after completing this video. And you also have your project controls and the monitoring. So during the project initiation stage, it is also quite important that as you strategize, as you plan, you are also noting down or you are also discussing the issues to do with tools. Tools in a project environment, they are very, very important. This day and age, there are so many tools that you can use, including even AI, which is artificial intelligence. You can also use Teams for meetings, okay? You can also use Zoom for meetings. Those are also tools that you can use. You can also use filing tools that can enable you to retrieve documents as quickly as possible. So I don't want to take you through so many tools that you use because it also depends on the project to project. But if you want to appreciate what are the main tools that are used in a project environment, I have a video on project tools, which you can also watch from my channel. So after putting together all this into one consolidated document called PID Project Charter, you now need to take that for approval. If you want me to create additional videos based on what we have discussed in this video, or you want me to revisit any specific concept which was not clear, you can also reach out to me or you can let me know in the comment section below.